So here we go, Chapter 3, Part 2. We were talking about how do we handle situations for lack of language equivalency. And this is in regards to global communication in the global environment here. So, just to make you aware, there are more than 3,000 languages used on the planet Earth. There are more than 200 languages that are used in India itself. In fact, I've been told by students, Chinese students in my face-to-face classes, that there are over 300 different Chinese dialects alone. So if you think, we talk funny here in the South, but again, we understand each other. You can only imagine going to a country like China where, hey, do you know Mandarin? Yes, but there are 300 different dialects of that Mandarin. I kind of gained this because I've been fortunate enough on behalf of Troy University to go over to China to teach classes there face to face. What's interesting is I show up at the cafeteria and I'm finding that I'm pointing to different food that I'm interested in having in the cafeteria, and they would serve it to me because I do not speak Mandarin at all, not even the least bit part of this. But what I noticed is students that were walking behind me were also doing the same thing. And I'd look over and I'd say, well, I don't understand. Don't you speak Mandarin? And yes, I do. Well, they speak Mandarin, yes, but we are from different areas, and the dialect that we're using, we really sometimes don't understand each other at all. So it's like we have our own foreign language, even though we speak Mandarin, but how we say the words is a little bit different. So I thought that was somewhat interesting. There's also some challenges among the language that makes that we do not have equivalent translations because the languages are generally based on experiences, different concepts, different views, different cultures. And their different cultures have different concepts that don't even exist. I'll give you a great example of this. The word florist. Okay, so florist in America means someone who sells flowers, while in some cultures, well, there's not a florist. There actually may be a cart person that will sell flowers out of a cart. There's not a formal store that you would go to that you would go and order flowers from. So, and it might even be situations where some of these florists or people that are selling flowers in other countries may be children. They've gone and picked flowers, and they're kind of putting them together, and they're selling flowers out of a cart. So some other words that may have some challenges, and that is a supermarket. Now, in some languages, there's not equivalent. Here, when I say, hey, we're going to go to the supermarket, we're going to go to the grocery store, whatever it is, and Walmart here is a supermarket. We can go buy clothes there. We can also go buy food there. Some of those do not exist. If we were face to face, I would tell you this. What's the difference between a house and a home? And I've asked a lot of students, and I ask a lot of ladies in the class, can you define what a home is? And they would say, somewhere I can put my clothes on that's warm and comfy, my slippers, my coffee mug that I like to get. Okay, that's perfect. What's the difference between a house? There's the same structure. It's a little bit different. Here in the South, we also have another word. Can we say the difference between what a man is and what a gentleman is? There's a difference. Even though it's the same male species, the difference between a male and a gentleman also is known. There's also grammatical and syntactic differences as well. The Oxford English Dictionary uses over 15,000 words to define what the word what means. 15,000 words to define what the word what means. Like meanings can be also different ways in different cultures. And we talked about this in video 1 and part 1 of our video series here for chapter 3. The word yes. The yes in America means, yes, I'm doing something. The word yes in China may mean, yes, I agree with you. Yes, I hear you. Or yes, I might be thinking about doing this. So the word yes means something completely different. We also have difficulties in using the English language. English today, as we mentioned earlier, is a primary business of international business, the primary language of international business. We also have challenges sometimes with what is known as two-word verbs. Great example is the word breakup. And if I ask you, hey, what does it mean to break up with somebody? It means, well, we're going our separate ways. Well, when you look at that and you break that word down, what does the word breakup? Break mean. Break means to demolish, to destroy. All right, what's the word up mean? Well, it means to lift upon, to rise. Well, if you're now having somebody or dealing with somebody that doesn't understand the English language or have a good understanding of it, and you say, hey, we're going to break up, you know what, my spouse and I broke up. Wow. That means you destroyed this person and then raised them up. Wow, that's kind of, I don't know if I could really talk with somebody. I'd be scared to say, well, I don't want to make this person mad. They might do the same thing to me. So you have to understand the two-word verbs. Cultural derived words, ritzy, scram, natch, lousy. I'm feeling lousy today. Doesn't have a translated meaning. Why? Because it really doesn't associate with other foreign countries. Words derived from sports. We're going to kick off this meeting. Over the top, below the belt, answer the bell. They also cause problems. I'll give you a great scenario here. My counterpart in Japan, on behalf of Walt Disney World, one day we had a disagreement. My boss came to me and says, David, here's what they need to do, or here's what I need done over there. And I go, okay, that's fine. So I'd go over and I would do it. And the person I was dealing with, my counterpart over there, was not happy. It's like, well, this is not going to happen. And I go, well, I don't care. It needs to happen. My boss wants this to happen. So we need to make this work and deal with it. So my counterpart decides, well, I don't think David understands. So I'm going to call David's boss. And so sure enough, he called my boss, and my boss says, well, what David is doing is what I asked him to do. And so I understand your conversation here with me today, but no, this is what we're going to do. And you basically need to go back and listen to what David has to say and be done with it. So the next morning, I was having a conversation with my counterpart, and he, basically got on the phone and says, David, I just want to let you know, I threw you over the bus. And I was like, Toki, I don't understand what you're talking about. What do you mean you threw me over the bus? So I'm trying to understand. He goes, well, after our conversation yesterday, I started thinking about it a little bit more, and I didn't think that you understood my point of view. So I called your boss and I threw you over the bus. And I went, oh, no, Toki, you didn't do that. Basically, you threw me under the bus. And I tried to, at that point, our conversation turned to explain what that entire meaning meant. So you have to understand derived sports as in kickoff, hey, we're going to kick off this meeting. Again, when you break that word down, kick and off, and they understand the basics of what those words mean, they will also drive some challenges as well. So how do you overcome? We talked about the languages. How do you overcome this? Well, it would be great if you were able to master the language of the non-native English speaker with whom you communicate. That would be great. But as we are now moving in society, we take on different roles. And when I say that, we're also looking at taking on different areas. So, I would be dealing with Japan today, China tomorrow, even if I think about what I do here at Troy University. Now, let's not talk about Disney. Let's talk about Troy. Okay. I not only teach here in the United States, American, so I'm speaking English. When I go over to Vietnam, yes, they do. My students do speak English there as well, but also understand that I have to know a little bit of Vietnamese in order to negotiate the streets there. I also teach in China. Not only my Chinese students, but I also log in and I teach a law class over to my Chinese students. I do teach to them in English, but understand that sometimes they use Chinese, so I have to have a general understanding of what they're talking about. I also teach a class over in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So understand those are different languages. Can I master Vietnamese? Can I master Chinese? Can I master languages that are taught in other areas that I'm teaching? No, no. It would be great, but I can't. I also have to be aware that there may be problems caused by language differences. Okay, I will often ask if I'm teaching this, do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? And also, I have to change the way I speak. I have to slow that process down too. I ask questions to make sure that we have a general understanding of what we are trying to communicate about. And often times, especially in the business world, not necessarily in education, I will check the accuracy of my communication with written summaries. Here's what we talked about today. And I would say, is there anything here that is concerning or you find to be troublesome? What I'm trying to do is get them, my person that I'm talking to say, yes, I don't think we agreed to this, or I don't think we are feel comfortable with this aspect. And the next time we have a communication, I will go and clear that up. If I'm working with cross-cultural negotiation teams, I try to make sure that I interact with them as best I can. And I, especially if I'm going to have a translator, it's important that you meet several hours or days, if you have that opportunity or that luxury, to meet with the translator that's going to be there and try to find out not only a pace, but what you need to do to kind of really help that meeting be better situated. Now, there are some hot spots that you need to take into consideration. Opening and closing conversations. What's it going to look like? A lot of times people go, oh, they focus on the details. They forget about what the opening is going to be, what the closing conversation is going to be. Here in America, we're quick into, hey, we're going to negotiate a deal, or this is a sales pitch. We're going to roll up our sleeves and let's dive into this. Opening conversation, especially in Asian areas, really has to be about developing this relationship. Don't roll you up your sleeves and dive into negotiation. It has to be more of a, hey, let's talk about this. Let's try to understand each other and not dive into business. Taking turns during the conversation. So one side's not overbearing or dominating. You want to take turns in doing this. Interrupting. Make sure that, some cultures will interrupt you. And they're not that they're being rude, but that's just their culture. But you have to understand those particular things. Use of silence. Again, we mentioned this in part one of the video, is not say, you know what, if they're silent, that means they're not agreeing with what I'm saying. No, they're processing what you're saying. And if you just take time to sit there and again, in Americans, we don't like silence. In fact, if there's silence for more than 4 or 5 seconds, man, we find this is an awkward situation. A lot of times we'll wrap up our conversation to be done. But I understand in other cultures, silence isn't, hey, in an awkward situation, it means I'm processing what you're saying. Appropriate topics of conversation, that's also crucial. There are certain situations that any times that I was there on behalf of Walt Disney World, we did not bring up. We did not bring up religion. We did not bring up politics. That's something that we did not cover. That's not the main objective of our business. So we did not feel comfortable covering those. Also in situations like, especially for Vietnam, or not Vietnam, but Japan, we didn't mention, World War II, the bombings or anything else like that. That really is not something that we wanted to go into conversations with. Knowing how much to say also is important. Don't forget, in some cultures, if you're especially making a sales pitch, not to steal from Kenny Rogers, but you need to, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Make your sales pitch, and then that's it. Don't keep talking, because you could talk yourself out of the deal. And also setting up communications after the fact. One of the last parts that you saw referenced in the textbook, and I'm talking about on page 66, we were talking about frankness and understand high context and low context. And high context defines cultures that are usually relational and collectivist, in which most highest interpersonal relationships are designed. High context cultures are those in which harmony and well-being of the group is preferred over an individual achievement. Low context refers to societies where people tend to have many connections, but of short durations or for some specific reason. And when I mention this, it's mostly for, hey, we're here to talk about a business transaction. Let's move on. Here's what's important. Understand that a culture can have both high and low context. Great example here in the United States. We are a culture that can have both high context and low context. Low context in regards to the form of business, high context in the form of our families. We want to have long-lasting context relationships with our family members. My sister, my mom, my brother, my father. We want to have those, our children. You want to have high context relations with those. But in regards to the section of business, we want to have low context. Hey, let's get to it. Let's talk about our business. Let's talk about this relationship we're going to have. Not necessarily needs to be for the rest of our lifetime and our children's and our grandchildren's and our children's. We don't need all of that. That is something to take into consideration. Now, one thing that the textbook I don't believe goes into detail, but I do want to talk about it here, is how do we handle conflict on a global stage? How do we handle conflict on a global stage? Okay, there is a difference here. One thing that I kind of want to bring up in this particular situation is it's important to understand your culture. It's understand your mindset in a situation where if things don't go correctly, how do I handle this? And one of the things that what comes to mind is a story about a gentleman that was representing a German bicycle company, and they were trying to be quick about this new bicycle, launching this new bicycle in the German market. And they knew in Germany they did not have all the resources and the manufacturability to mass produce these bicycles and release them. So they looked elsewhere. So they looked over to China. This particular consultant was based in Hong Kong. He actually went over to mainland China, and he hired and selected a manufacturer to make these bicycles. And one of the things that he was doing is he got all the specs, he provided it to them, and he says, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to check with you probably in about a month to see where you are, but these things need to be back and ready to go for shipping in 3 months so we can get them and sell them during the summer in Germany. So sure enough, after about a month, he went over to the plant that was making these, and he called the plant manager and said, look, I'm going to show up in a week or so. Again, this is about a month, and says, if you don't mind, if you just have them out there, let's just pick 2 bicycles and let's just go for a ride. And sure enough, he arrived, he picked 2 bicycles, the plant manager and he, put on their riding pants, and they decided to go ride the bicycles. And what he noticed as he was riding is his bicycle was making a sound, like a grinding sound. Didn't know where, but after he finished up and they rode for about an hour or 2 hours, they went back to the plant, and he got off the bicycle and he said, hey, I just want to let you know, I heard a grinding sound coming out of my bicycle. And I also noticed that same sound coming from yours. And that was it. That's all he said. He hopped back on a plane and flew back to Hong Kong. And he reported that, yeah, everything is going well. And, we'll back to his company over in Germany. And we should be good to go in the 3-month time period for delivery. And so that was about it. Well, he was having that conversation with one of his friends that evening and said, hey, I kind of went over and test drove and a bicycle, and I just got back, and this friend was from the US and said, well, how'd it go? And he goes, well, I noticed there was a rattle noise coming from my bicycle and also the plant managers, but I made him aware of it. And kind of shocked. Well, you didn't point it out. You didn't, you didn't do anything else. You just made him aware of it. Yeah, it's all he did. What was key, though, that he noted there in that conversation with his friend is, yeah, we have a little bit different. There's a different mindset here, and in the Western mindset, if you think about how we handle problems, is we are quick to identify what the problem is, and we're very quick of doing that. Hey, it was a gear sound, and it sounded like it was grinding. We identify it, and then we are quick to assign blame to it. And what the situation here is, we could say, hey, they are not being manufactured, or here's where it's coming from, the seat area here. It sounds like every time I hit a bump that the connector here is giving away, and the grinding that I'm hearing is the seat actually lowering upon itself and it's stripping the metal. I'm assigning a blame. We also assign responsibility to fix it. You need to go ahead and go about fixing this. And we're quick also to solve or suggest how to resolve. If you think about this, you think about this in your daily life that you have here. We're quick to, in fact, if you look at TikTok or you look at Facebook or you look at any social media, we're quick to assign, to identify a problem, we're assigning blame. You don't know how to sing. Assign responsibility to fix it. Well, you need to go take some more singing lessons. And we're quick to suggest things. That's how we do it here in the Western mindset. How is it over in East Asia? Well, we signal there's a sign of a problem. Assumption that someone will take responsibility to resolve. That's what the plant manager did. So when he got off the bike, he said, you know what? I heard a grinding sound coming from my bike, and I heard the same grinding sound coming from yours. And by doing that, he identified the problem, and the plant manager quickly went in and resolved the problem without being told how to do it. Because if the person says, hey, I think it was coming from the seat, they would have checked the seat. Nope, no grinding sign from here. And nope, we checked the seat. The seat was perfect. And then they would have been shipped to Germany, and the same grinding situation would have happened. So take that into consideration and understand the handling conflict in the global stage. And again, it's trying to have a geocentric orientation. Hey, how does problem solving work on a global platform versus being ethocentric of saying, hey, here's how we do things in the United States. We are going to identify a problem. We're going to assign blame. You manufactured it incorrectly. Assign responsibility. You as the plant manager need to fix this, and here's how you need to fix this. So understand those concepts and being able to be more geocentric orientation in your thoughts. I hope these videos help. That's going to conclude chapter 3. And again, I hope these videos help in the process. It's a great, and I wish we could spend a lot more time. This really is crucial as now we start to think about, and now we have platforms and devices that allow us to communicate globally. I look forward to talking to you more in chapter 4.